It's Calgary's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Today's guest is John Evans, who is president of EverLine Coatings and Services. Thanks for joining us today, John.
Hey, no problem. Thanks very much for having me. This is exciting.
Okay, tell me a little bit about what EverLine is and what you guys do.
Certainly. So EverLine Coatings and Services is a parking lot line painting and asphalt maintenance company. So there's virtually been a need in the market all across Canada for a particular contractor that focuses on all the services required in a parking lot. So that includes not just line painting, but the asphalt maintenance, so seal coating, crack filling, and pothole repair, that sort of stuff. And we service commercial clients through that sort of thing, and we franchise it across Canada.
Do you put in those speed bumps too?
We do.
Okay. We won't go there. Here's a question while I have you. Yeah. What determines the size of those things? Because some of them are little tiny things, and then some are like monstrosities that you wonder, like, what the heck happened to my car after I went through them?
Yeah, it depends on the clients, really. If they think speed is a problem, they make them hurt.
Okay. So you guys never get any backlash from that, do you?
No, we just do whoever signs the checks tells us.
Okay, great. How did you get started in this?
When I was in university, I ran a student painting franchise through College Pro Painters, and so I was able to get contracting experience while going to school and that sort of thing. Then when school was finished, I was kind of outgrew that program a little bit. Kind of decided, all right, okay, what am I going to do? And my first thought was, having been a franchisee through that program, is to, okay, well, I'm not, don't have a brand new idea of what to do or anything, or something to invent or anything like that. I went to a franchise show, not to buy any here in Calgary, not to buy anything, but to just to get the juices flowing of what's out there, that sort of thing. And I ran into a company that was licensing. They weren't selling a franchise, but they were licensing a more durable traffic paint for the ground. And so we got to talking, and given that I came from a painting background, it was somewhat familiar. It's just, instead of putting it on walls and windows, it was spraying it on the ground, that sort of thing. So that just kind of got the juices flowing as to how that could be a key competitive advantage for a company to have a product that would be exclusive to us and that sort of thing, and kind of went from there.
Okay.
And it went, and so then we kind of grew it over the years, as they say in Seinfeld, yada yada yada, and started franchising it across Canada, and there we went.
Okay, super. Now I hear that you had some interesting and exciting times recently, appearing on Dragon's Den. Tell me what you can tell me about that appearance.
I can. I'm now that the episode is aired, I can kind of dive into virtually anything. But it was Dragon's Den that really, back in 2007, I think it was season 2, that I first saw that show, and it was kind of set me on the course for what I wanted to do, was going into entrepreneurship and that sort of thing. Not only to become a dragon, but to be in the position of those entrepreneurs, laying it all out there, and really just having a great, just putting that risk out. It's like, listen, I'm going to go out at absolute risk of being humiliated on national TV, and for the shot of getting to my company to the next level. So, it was incredible. It was an intensive auditioning process. I remember it was a Sunday morning, eating breakfast, watching reruns of Dragon's Den, and it just turned. I was like, I'm going to do that. I think my company's in a position where I can do that, because where you see a lot of companies go is they go on too early or too late, where they're not investable at that point. So I was like, I'm in that sweet spot. I'm going to give it a try. And so we went and did an audition downtown Calgary. There was thousands of people there. And what I did is I like, you could have the best business in the world, but if it's not exciting, then the producers won't pick you. So it was kind of an odd experience, when I went to go pitch. You pitch the producers first in the audition, so they act as dragons, kind of thing, just to see how you. And so I went, and put it in there, and they had two of us in the same room pitching at the same time. And like, my undiagnosed ADD and was like listening to the other guy while doing that. And anyways, I pitched him on the experience. I said, this would be really cool because we could have the dragons painting lines in the on the area there, and the producer wanted to see videos of what it would look like, and they saw it would be a great segment. They want stuff that's entertaining.
Yeah.
And so so then we got the call that we were going to go film, and then it was months of preparation. I just knew that this was a do or die moment. And then when you get there, I didn't know this, but there's actually a small chance of even airing even after filming. So they film way more than that. So that was just like, this has got to be good. So we went in there, walked down the stairs, saw the dragons all before me, and it was like what you saw on TV there through our segment. They really treated us well in the editing process. They tore me apart and they poke as many holes as possible. It is a TV show, so they're trying to frustrate you. They're trying to get stuff out of you, and they just hold strong and face the fire. So,
So what was the outcome of this?
So we ended up doing a deal on the show with Manjeets. So so I went in there asking for $250,000 for 10% of the company, and we had two different deals offered to us. One between Manjeet, just Manjeet herself, as well as Vincenzo and Michelle were working together as well. And there were two very different deals. Manjeet offered 3% royalty with a 5% equity stake, and Vincenzo and Michelle offered the money I asked for 20%. And while some people would say, well, the royalty is kind of like it's just kind of like a blank check written to somebody and some capital coming out, the margins in the company were strong enough to afford that, and I felt that the value that Manjeet would bring to the company would actually exceed 3%. So
okay. Plus you get free beer too, don't you?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, as soon as that episode was done, I went right over to a brewery and then had some beers.
Okay, for our listeners out there who don't know, Manjeet Minhas is the owner of Minhas Brewing in Calgary and elsewhere. What's your vision for the company as you go forward?
So we are what I would call the second stage of a three-stage rocket. So So as I mentioned before, we are franchising the company across Canada, and we've been successful here in Calgary, producing multi-million-dollar revenues, all that sort of stuff. And now we started franchising this business about 3 years ago. We're now, our first franchisee is getting up to the $1 million mark in revenue and all that kind of stuff. So, and then also we have 7 other locations all across Canada right now, with 4 to 6 right now in the hopper, to nearly double the size of our company this year, which would be really great. So what I see is that we start filling out, we have an amazing business model that is millennial friendly and very much a niche that is totally needed, where if you apply advanced business development processes, that it is successful. And I've seen it over and over again. This is not just a Calgary thing or just a me running it thing. Yeah. And so I'm excited about providing that opportunity to other entrepreneurial people. So there are people out there that are a lot like me when I first, when I left school, or I was thinking about my next business. And so I went to a franchise show just to get the juices flowing, for the right, for the right mindset, a hunter mentality, that sort of thing. This is something that has been great to not just myself, but to our franchisees, and looking to do that. So then once we fill out Canada with more franchises, like the little pockets that we're not in just quite yet, we have more leverage to go to national contracts and say, hey, we can service all of your properties with one company. You have one neck to strangle, all that sort of stuff.
What's the biggest challenge you've faced as an entrepreneur?
Oh man, it's always a rotating thing. There was advice that I received years ago, was that entrepreneurship is really managing shortage. There is always some sort of shortage, always.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that, then you're not pushing yourself at all. So it's either people, cash, or work is essentially it's kind of the trifecta of shortage as it goes. So it's just the constant dance of that. When you finally get up on people, then you have less work because you're plowing through work faster. And then you have more work, you have more cash, but then you don't have enough people to do it. Then you add more people, then you have less cash. It just goes on forever. So I think that's kind of the greatest ongoing challenge as it goes, and that is something that's that's kind of part of it.
What about doing business in Calgary itself? What are the benefits of being a business owner here in this city?
What I love about Calgary, and the kind of as fortune brought me to Calgary, I came here for school and stayed here and married myself an Albertan farm girl, and all that kind of stuff. Started a business here. It is absolutely the pick yourself up by the bootstraps mentality. It is, there is still the prairie farmer DNA, all throughout all through everybody. And I connected with that quite well. So, it's at the roots. And not only do you get resourceful people out of that. So not only with other business owners throughout there, but that DNA is sprinkled through your workers as well, through employees. And so that actually gives you an advantage if you tap into that and capture that as much as possible.
Okay. Biggest challenge you see today in Calgary for being a business owner?
So I would have to say by far the biggest challenge is how emotional people get with the swing of the economy.
Yeah.
Now, it is, Alberta absolutely is, and no one will ever argue this, an up and down province, primarily due to its over dependence on oil resources. And it is quite interesting that even though the economy statistically is okay, if people are not feeling okay, then they stop spending money, they cut off projects, all that kind of stuff, and it's just like an overreaction. And so that's kind of the biggest challenge is when you're trying to run a business in Calgary and in Alberta, is managing that and just trying to be like, stay calm, everything's going to be okay. We're plugging forward. We have a high GDP as a province. We're okay. Like, let's go. So
yeah, exactly.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. As a business owner, outside, put yourself outside the environment of your office and your work environment. Where do you get ideas for the business? Is there any things you do in terms of your passions, your pursuits and interests that get the creative juices flowing?
Oh yeah, certainly a couple of things. Being an entrepreneur business owner, it is absolutely way too easy just to get completely lost within your own organization and not be able to import knowledge or even just take a break outside of things. So if I were to say, on kind of the short-term small I guess like those short little breaks that you need to take. I get inspired, walking downtown, going to a coffee shop downtown Kensington, all that sort of stuff, just to get away, get a different scenery. Our shop area is in the southeast, and just kind of getting new environments and that sort of thing. Also, what I do is I go to trade-related conventions quite a bit. So that would have to be, in franchising, for instance, there's the Canadian Franchise Association, which has a tremendous convention and resources for franchisors. And to go out of your home base and go and meet with them and start hearing perspectives from all over the rest of Canada and even some from the US, that you actually do get, a total fresh new look, and you're actually importing a fresh perspective into your business, which has worked well for us.
Okay, super then. Gonna switch gears a little bit, ask you some personal questions.
Sure.
Everybody these days has kind of like a bucket list. Do you have one? And if so, what's on top of it?
Ooh. So on the bucket list, it's absolutely I'm pretty simple. Like I'm kind of like a homeboy. I don't really like going anywhere or doing anything. Like my ideal weekend is literally doing nothing at all. So I would have to say my now being an entrepreneur, my bucket list is totally related to the successes of the business itself. It's got to be, Dragon's Den was one of them. So now it's like, okay, how do you leverage that into
Mhm.
into the next bucket list? And it's absolutely kind of expanding in the United States and starting to have EverLine's model work throughout the United States. And seeing that happen for me would be an absolute incredible experience.
Okay, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, any thoughts of what kind of job or career you'd be in?
Oh boy, I would probably go be head first into politics.
Oh,
Actually,
wow.
yeah, yeah. I've always been a political junkie. Actually, and my first year in university was actually at the University of Ottawa to be kind of close to the mecca of it
Yeah.
all, to work at parliament and all that sort of stuff. But it didn't. It wasn't for me at that time. So maybe in a couple decades I'll get into it. We'll see.
Okay. In
Yeah.
this fast-paced technological age that we live in, a lot of people don't read anymore. I'm wondering, do you read any books?
I listen to audiobooks.
Uh-huh.
So right now I just finished Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Uh-huh.
Uh, that was actually quite incredible book. It was about there are certain elements of extreme success throughout history. Why,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of down to even learning why there is such a divide between people in our democracy. Like it goes down to like our ancestry of some people were farmers and some people were animal herders, and like you gain different skill sets. You trust and work with people a little more as farmers, and you trust and work with people a lot less as animal herders, and like they all kind of expanded into different areas in North America and the world, and it actually changed everything. So quite interesting.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. If you had one word to describe yourself, what would it be and why?
I would say driven. And naturally, that's what we turned our actual core corporate values here at Everline is that we are driven people, and I would have to say it's for me. It's never enough. As much as we are celebrating and excited about being on Dragon's Den and having a tremendous segment being put out there about us, it was it's just like, okay, what's next? What's good? How do we use this? There was not a lot of time just to sit back and be like, this is great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, super then. Question about, I don't know if you travel much, but is there a place that you like to go to and spend time?
I do very much like the Bahamas. Actually, there's an island I've gone to multiple times now on Eleuthera. It's kind of like a side island there. There's some beautiful spots. It's quiet and very safe, and you get miles of beaches to yourself entirely. So it's really nice.
Okay, since we're on to the travel topic, let me ask you, we'll put forward a scenario for you. We're
Yeah.
going to drop you off on a small tropical island somewhere in the middle of the ocean. Beautiful place, got no technology, but it has one phone booth. Now, we're going to leave you there, and at any time you could pick up the phone and call us, and we'll come pick you up.
Hmm.
So two questions. One is, how long would you last, do you think, before making that phone call? And what do you think you'd be doing while you were there?
That's a I've never been asked anything remotely close to that question. I have to think about that. I would have to say is that it'd probably be just like a couple of days of just chilling and
Yeah.
and not do very much, but it won't take very long for me to start wanting to get busy. And there's certain itches that I need to get scratched here on how we're going to on how I need to operate. So I would have to say like a week at most. I'd probably be like, all right, I'm done with this. Let's get back to work. Yeah, let's get back to work.
Okay, speaking of getting back to work, let me ask you about routines. A lot of people have kind of daily rituals, daily routines that they follow almost like every day, basically.
Yeah.
Do you?
I do, yeah. So do as much as I can to wake up pretty early. We just had a new daughter here. She's 9 months now, and her and I we sit in bed, have a cup of coffee, and play in the morning, which is really really nice. Then it's getting to work. It's listening to audiobooks and things like that as we go into work. Sitting down, plugging through, planning out the day on five things that I need to get done that day, and then just get to work at it, and then whatever comes through the rest of the day kind of works out.
Okay, super. Before you leave us today, John, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I would have to say, thank you very, very much for having me. And, really, it's very, very proud to be a Calgarian entrepreneur. I would have to say that diversification and of the economy and pushing, for, pulling us all up by our bootstraps to really do a great service to the economy as a whole by getting involved in something that will work for you and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the idea that I wanted to wrap up with, is that here in EverLine in Calgary, we've been able to create jobs and create livelihoods. A real positive work environment, that sort of thing, that we are able to provide a lot of good, and we're not connected at all to oil and gas. So that's how you gotta do it. You gotta get over it, guys. Let's just keep going.
Great. Thanks for being our guest today, John, on Calgary's podcast.
All right. Thank you.